before the Maya built their celestial observatories, before the grand city of Teotihuacan laid out its cosmic grid, before the Aztecs raised their blood-soaked pyramids to the sun, there were the Olmecs. They are a ghost in the deep history of Mesoamerica, a people shrouded in the mists of the distant past. They left behind no great libraries of books we can read, no dynastic histories of kings and queens that spell out their story. We do not even know what they called themselves. The name we use, Olmec, is an Aztec word, coined thousands of years after their time, meaning the rubber people, a reference to the rubber trees that grew in the lands they once inhabited. Their story is not written in ink, but in stone. It is a story told by colossal, multi-ton heads with enigmatic expressions, by intricate jade carvings of snarling half-human, half-jaguar beings, and by great earthen pyramids built to command a landscape of sweltering heat and winding rivers. For centuries, their existence was not even suspected. They were a civilization lost to time, their achievements wrongly attributed to the later, more famous Maya. To uncover the story of the Olmecs is to uncover the very origins of Mesoamerican civilization itself. They are the great enigma, the cultural Rosetta Stone for a world of pyramids, blood sacrifice, and feathered serpents. They pose two of the most profound questions in archaeology. How did the first great civilization of the Americas arise, and perhaps more hauntingly, what happened to them? Where did the Olmecs go? The answer is not one of a simple disappearance, but a truth far more complex, a story of environmental change, internal strife, and a cultural legacy so powerful that it never truly died. Before we journey back more than 3,000 years into the Mesoamerican Preclassic period, I invite you to subscribe. We are dedicated to exploring the foundational mysteries of human history, and your support is vital to that mission. Please share your own thoughts and questions in the comments below. The story of the Olmecs is still being written, and every perspective adds a new piece to the puzzle. Now, let us venture into the jungle lowlands of the Mexican Gulf Coast, the land they once called home. Our story begins not in antiquity, but in 1862. A farmer clearing a patch of land in the state of Veracruz struck something hard in the soil. He began to dig, and what he unearthed was something so unexpected, so monumental, that it defied all explanation. It was a colossal stone head, taller than a man, with a powerful, brooding face, thick lips, and a close-fitting helmet. The explorer who first documented it, Jose Melgar, was stunned. The features were, in his words, Ethiopian, unlike any known art from the Americas. He had stumbled upon the first clue to a world no one knew existed. For decades, this head, and a few others that were subsequently found, remained a baffling curiosity. The prevailing wisdom was that the Maya were the great mother civilization of Mesoamerica. These strange, powerful heads were assumed to be the work of a Maya offshoot. It was not until the 1930s and 40s, through the pioneering and often controversial work of archaeologist Matthew Stirling, that the truth began to emerge. Stirling began excavating sites like La Venta and San Lorenzo, and what he found turned the timeline of Mesoamerican history on its head. Through radiocarbon dating, he proved that these sites and the colossal heads found within them were not just pre-Maya. They were centuries, even a millennium older. This was not a branch of the Maya tree, this was the root. Stirling had uncovered the first great civilization of Mesoamerica, a culture that had risen out of the swamps and riverlands of the Gulf Coast around 1500 BC, a contemporary of New Kingdom Egypt and Mycenaean Greece. He had found the Olmecs. The land they inhabited, the Olmec heartland, was a challenging environment. A tropical lowland of dense jungle, winding rivers, and oppressive humidity. It was a land of abundance, teeming with life, but also a land of floods and peril. It was in this crucible that the Olmecs forged a society of unprecedented complexity. They learned to control the water, to cultivate the land, and to harness human labor on a scale never before seen in the region. And from this land, they created a culture so powerful and influential that its echoes would be felt for the next 3,000 years. The most iconic and awe-inspiring legacy of the Olmecs are the colossal heads. To date, 17 of these monumental sculptures have been found. They are not gods, they are portraits. Each one is a unique individual, wearing a distinctive helmet, believed to be the likeness of a powerful Olmec ruler. They are monuments to mortal power, human beings elevated to the status of stone gods. Their expressions are powerful, stoic, and intensely personal. To look at a colossal head is to look into the face of a king who has been dead for 3,000 years. Their creation is a staggering feat of engineering. The stone from which they are carved, a volcanic basalt, is not found in the Olmec heartland. The nearest quarries are in the Tenochtitlan Mountains, over 100 miles away. The Olmecs, who had no beasts of burden and no knowledge of the wheel, somehow quarried these massive boulders, some weighing over 40 tons, and transported them through dense jungle and across rivers to their capital cities. They likely used a combination of manpower, sledges, and great rafts. The sheer logistical organization required to move a single one of these stones speaks to a society with a powerful, centralized leadership capable of commanding immense labor. Once in place, the stones were carved with tools of stone. The artists created these sensitive, powerful portraits through a process of pecking and grinding, a testament to their incredible skill. But there is a final, dark mystery to the heads. Many of them were deliberately mutilated, defaced, and then carefully, ritually buried. Were they killed upon the death of the ruler they depicted to destroy his power? Or were they defaced by rebels in an act of iconoclasm, a revolution against a tyrannical dynasty? This mystery of their destruction is a key clue to what may have ultimately happened to the Olmecs themselves. Beyond the heads, the Olmecs were Mesoamerica's first great builders. Their cities were not made of stone like the later Maya, but of earth and clay. Their first great capital, which flourished from roughly 1400 to 900 BC, was San Lorenzo. San Lorenzo was built on a massive, artificially raised plateau, a monumental earth-moving project that involved reshaping the landscape itself. It was a sacred, man-made mountain. The city featured palaces, ceremonial plazas, and a sophisticated drainage system of buried stone channels, one of the most advanced water systems in the ancient world. Around 900 BC, San Lorenzo went into decline and a new capital rose to prominence, Venta. Venta was a ceremonial powerhouse. At its center stood one of the very first pyramids in Mesoamerica, the Great Pyramid, a 110-foot-tall cone of packed earth, likely meant to represent a sacred volcano from the Tenochtitlan Mountains. The entire city was laid out on a precise north-south axis, an early example of the cosmic city planning that would define Teotihuacan and the Maya. At Venta, archaeologists discovered caches of incredible wealth, not of gold, but of a material the Olmecs valued even more, greenstone. They found massive mosaic pavements of serpentine blocks, laid out in the shape of abstract jaguar masks, which were then immediately buried, offerings meant not for human eyes, but for the gods of the earth and the underworld. This brings us to the heart of their worldview, their art and ideology. If the colossal heads represent their politics, their smaller, more intricate art represents their soul. They were masters of carving jade and serpentine, materials they equated with water, fertility, maize, and life itself. And the central figure in their artistic universe is the were-jaguar. This is a strange and powerful motif, a hybrid creature that is part human and part jaguar. It often appears as a baby with a snarling, downturned mouth, cleft head, and almond-shaped eyes. What does this being represent? Is it an ancestor, the product of a mythical union between a human woman and a jaguar? Is it their primary deity, a powerful rain god associated with the thunderous roar of the jaguar? Or is it a representation of a shaman in the midst of a spiritual transformation, taking on the power of the most feared predator in the jungle? The were-jaguar is the central mystery of the Olmec belief system, a powerful being that seems to be the ancestor of many later Mesoamerican rain gods and fertility deities. And they were not alone. In Olmec art, we see the first stirrings of the great gods that would dominate Mesoamerica for millennia. We see figures that appear to be an early version of a maize god. We see evidence of a feathered serpent, the god who would become Quetzalcoatl to the Aztecs. We see evidence of a complex cosmology, a belief in a multi-layered universe, and the importance of shamanic journeys into the spirit world. They also likely originated the ritual 260-day calendar that would become the sacred heart of all later cultures, and perhaps even the first writing systems in Mesoamerica. The evidence is clear. The Olmecs laid the cultural and religious blueprint for everyone who followed. This leads us to the great academic debate. Were the Olmecs the mother culture of Mesoamerica, or were they one of a group of sister cultures? The mother culture theory, long the dominant view, holds that the Olmecs were the sole innovators. They invented the core tenets of Mesoamerican civilization: pyramids, calendars, writing, the ball game, the worship of key gods. And this complete cultural package was then disseminated outwards, adopted and adapted by other, less developed peoples. In this view, all roads lead back to the Olmec heartland. However, more recent archaeology has complicated this picture. Discoveries in other regions like Oaxaca and the Maya lowlands show that some of these traits, like pottery and village life, developed independently. This has led to the sister cultures theory, which proposes a more complex scenario. In this view, the Olmecs were one of several early societies that were developing in parallel. They were all in contact, trading goods and ideas in a complex web of interaction. The Olmecs may have been the most advanced, the most powerful, the older sister, whose innovations were the most influential, but they were not the sole source of all culture. The truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. While some basic technologies were shared, the sheer concentration and early appearance of the most iconic Mesoamerican traits, monumental sculpture, complex kingship, foundational myths, in the Olmec heartland is undeniable. They may not have been the only mother, but they were, without a doubt, the civilization that first synthesized these elements into a powerful and coherent worldview that would set the course for all the great empires that followed. They were the ghost in the machine of Mesoamerica. But if they were so powerful and so influential, what happened to them? Why did their great cities fall silent? This is the final mystery. There was no single, dramatic collapse like that of the classic Maya. Instead, it was a long, slow decline that happened in two major phases. The first phase was the fall of San Lorenzo, around 900 BC. The city was abandoned, and crucially, its great monuments and colossal heads were systematically mutilated and buried. This was not the work of foreign invaders, it was an inside job. The evidence points towards two primary culprits: environmental change and internal revolution. San Lorenzo's power was tied to its control of the river networks for trade and agriculture. Some scholars believe that a natural change in the course of the Coatzacoalcos River may have crippled the city's economy and its ability to feed its people. This environmental crisis could easily have led to the second cause: internal strife. The deliberate destruction of the ruler portraits, the colossal heads, is a powerful statement. It suggests a population rising up against its leadership, a dynasty that had failed in its primary duty to ensure prosperity. The gods of the river had turned against them, and the people in turn turned against their kings, ritually killing their stone images before abandoning the city. After the fall of San Lorenzo, the Olmec civilization recentered at Venta, which flourished for another 500 years. Venta was even grander in its ceremonial scope, but it too eventually fell. Around 400 BC, Venta was also abandoned, its monuments defaced. Here, the evidence points to a different set of causes. One powerful theory involves the volcanoes of the Tenochtitlan Mountains, the source of the Olmecs' precious basalt. Geologists have found evidence of several major eruptions during the period of Venta's decline. A massive eruption could have blanketed the region in ash, devastating agriculture for years. Such a terrifying natural disaster would have been seen as a sign of ultimate divine wrath, a signal that the cosmos was out of balance and that this sacred place was now cursed. Another contributing factor was likely the shifting political and economic landscape of Mesoamerica. By 400 BC, other powerful centers were rising in different regions. The Zapotecs in Oaxaca and the early Maya in the south were beginning to form their own complex societies. The Olmecs may have lost their preeminent status, their control over crucial trade routes for valuable goods like jade and obsidian. As their economic power waned, so too did the political power of their rulers, leading once again to internal instability and the eventual abandonment of their last great capital. So what happened to the Olmecs? They did not vanish. They were not wiped out by a single catastrophic event. Their civilization, as a cohesive political and cultural entity centered in the Gulf Coast heartland, underwent a long, slow process of decline and transformation, driven by a complex cocktail of environmental pressures, internal rebellion, and shifting geopolitics. The Olmec people themselves did not disappear. They likely migrated, their populations breaking up and moving into other regions, integrating with other local cultures. And they brought their ideas with them. The true legacy of the Olmecs is not in the ruins of their cities, but in the cultures of everyone who came after. The ghost of the Olmecs is everywhere in Mesoamerica. We see it in the Maya reverence for greenstone and their depictions of divine kings. We see it in the Zapotec writing system and calendar. We see it in the Aztec worship of a feathered serpent and their belief in a universe born from sacrifice. The Olmecs provided the foundational grammar of a civilization. They carved the faces of their kings into stone, but they carved their ideas into the very soul of a continent. They are a story not of a lost people, but of a culture that transformed so profoundly that it became the bedrock of a new world. They are a reminder that civilizations are not monolithic, unchanging things. They are living organisms that rise, flourish, decline, and crucially, pass on their DNA to their descendants. The Olmecs are the ancestors, and their enigmatic, stone-faced children are all the great civilizations of Mesoamerica that we have come to know. The truth is, the Olmecs never truly left. They are simply hidden in plain sight, their spirits still breathing in the art, religion, and politics of the world they helped to create. Thank you for joining us on this journey to the dawn of Mesoamerican civilization. If this exploration into our shared human past has been meaningful to you, please support our work by liking and subscribing. And let us know your thoughts below. What lessons can we learn from the rise and fall of the Olmecs? Until next time, keep searching for the stories written in stone.